Started. Yeah. But anyways, welcome to the stream today. And I have with me here, I have Atila. Atila is a senior developer experience engineer at Xata. And just to give you a rundown of what to expect today, we would have Attila going over how to manage databases in scalable Jamstack applications. After that, we would entertain questions from everyone and we would proceed to have the next talk, which is with myself and Colby. And typically, we will be talking about how to stay consistent as a technical writer, and also a very hot topic, a topic I really care about, which is how to source titles. It's one thing to write, but it's another thing to know what to write. So I would leave the floor for Attila now, and Attila, you could share your screen afresh if you have to, and I will just add it to the stream.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, it's not live streaming if there is not like any little technical issues, right? So yeah, so as William said, nice to meet you all. My name is Atila, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about managing databases and handling data in scalable Jamstack apps. And before we actually get started, I'd love if um, some of you help me test the comments here. So I have your comments turned on here on the screen, and if you can just share to me where you're watching this from, that would be nice. Like a country, whatever you feel like it. Just send me a heads up, and I love seeing this and makes me chill that there's that I'm actually talking to people, not talking to my webcam over here because that's a little bit worse. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot. Nice. Nigeria, Norway, Ghana. Cool. Mombasa from Kenya. Amazing. I hope I said that right. Yeah. Um, awesome. So, yeah, let's get started because there's a lot to show and we actually don't have that much time. So, yeah, first of all, again, my name is Atila. I work at Xata. I'm a developer experience engineer. That essentially means that my daily work and my main task is to make sure that people like you feel comfortable and happy while using Xata. And you can find me at my website, atila.io. You can also use like /YouTube, Twitter, or GitHub to find me on many social medias. Basically, I'm Atila Facina. That's my last name everywhere. So if you don't want to use my shortcuts, you can also just poke that straight in the address bar. You're going to find me, and that's it. So when we're talking about Jamstack, I think it's nice to take a step back, especially when you're talking about databases and talk about serverless. What does this actually mean? So first of all, this is like some people consider that a misnomer in the sense that the word doesn't mean what the word is actually saying. So it's a bad naming in the sense that it implies there is no server, when in fact there are many servers. But the point is that there's no server for us, the user people, to actually handle them. So in serverless, in the sense that you don't need to maintain them, somebody else is. So that's why you have like um, platform as a service kind of providers like Netlify and things like that. And based on this serverless architecture is where the Jamstack comes from, right? And the serverless architecture is also where we deposit like everything that we do in Xata, more or less, and what Xata is actually standing for. So the Jamstack, the gem in the Jamstack is actually an acronym, which some of you may already know. So the J stands for JavaScript, or in that, for most of us, actually TypeScript, I guess. And the A stands for APIs, and the M stands for markup. So in this talk, and what Xata is all about is handling the A part of the Jamstack. So handling the APIs, or more specifically, the data of your application. So one short second. So to explain, like to get a gist about what actually is Jamstack, we are going to have a look at um, like a little diagram that I'd like to draw with you. So first of all, as front-end developers, um, we actually build an app, and then this app is full of JavaScript in many cases, and the markup. So here you can see the J and the M of the Jamstack. So essentially, what the Jamstack defends is we're going to serve like the static content from whatever server we get, and then whenever we hit the client side, the browser, we are going to hydrate that with JavaScript whenever we need, and the JavaScript is actually going to manage the logic of our application. So it's going to handle if data needs to be updated, if there is some state change or things like that. And then what we put on top of it, like with serverless functions or even with like full-blown servers, are the microservice architecture, where the backend actually encapsulates whatever they need to do in little containers, so to speak, or little services that have hopefully only one responsibility. So you can have one service to manage like translations, for example, another service to handle some comments in your blog posts or stuff like that. So you have a bunch of microservices, and those are actually the A. So those are the APIs. But then when we're creating like enterprise level or more complex stuff, apps, we end up needing to handle like a big data layer. So these are essentially when there's the data that we are responsible for, and that like our own app data. So like login data, where we're going to store like user information, um, analytics, maybe this kind of stuff. How we're going to handle the bulk of the data that needs to live on a backend, and where those microservices are going to get the data from. And this big green data, this big green box of data is actually not described how to be managed on the Jamstack paradigm. Um, but there are a few solutions already. And um, this is more or less where we are going to be dealing for the next 40 minutes, about how to create this kind of data. These are usually the kind of stuff that companies have a whole team for, but entertain me for one moment here, and let's see how it goes. So whenever we're creating an app, most apps, we start, okay, so we need to handle this data. So first of all, we're going to add a database. And then our app starts growing. So we need to scale this database. We can scale it vertically in most cases. So whenever we get this machine where this database is living, and we add more RAM, we add more CPU, we add more power to it, or we can scale horizontally. So we're going to make it available in different parts, in different places. And we're actually going to divide this data in all these databases to make things easier to fetch or query and so on, to make performance better. So whenever we do that, at some point things start getting slow for our API. So then we introduce something that's called KV store. So some of you may know a few popular KV store. The most popular one is probably Redis. So these are essentially like these very tend to be very fast databases that have a key and a value. So you have a very simple way of querying stuff, and they essentially work as a caching layer between your actual database and the APIs you need to query for. And then at some point you start getting more and more data, and you need to handle like what are your users are actually going to be doing when they need to find data in your app. And then we say, okay, I need to create some sort of search. And then you need to implement this kind of search, because a database, like the search in the database, are not ready for this kind of like big amounts of data and so on. So whenever your app starts growing and you start getting a bunch of requests, you need to introduce some queuing system like Kafka or whatever. And so you need to put like, you already have like database, which can be Postgres, MySQL, wherever. You have Redis on top of it to make the queries fast. And now you're adding Kafka to manage your Elasticsearch. So that's a whole big thing. So let's go back now to what our Jamstack is whenever we're starting to grow. So we have this like two APIs now, and these two APIs behind our app are connecting to this KV store, connecting to Redis. And Redis is connecting to our database that connects to Kafka, which is a queue that connects to Elasticsearch to make sure that our data is accessible and fast. Anybody feeling like this right now? That's a lot, right? That's a lot to maintain. Especially like, and if you look at like this application that just started, like very ergonomic and very pleasurable to build, like it's really fun to develop Jamstack apps. So you go on and you handle like your state first, you handle all your application first, you're out of the box with Netlify or other data providers, platform providers, and you're deploying it easy. You get continuous integration, you get continuous deployment. You're deploying like these little serverless functions to handle data to multiple APIs. You're connecting to a bunch of data points, but suddenly you want to own your own data. You need some data that you need to own, and you're handling all this stuff. That's a lot. Um, Luckily, that's what Xata is for. What we are doing at Xata is actually abstracting the complexity of all this for people to be able to manage this data and think on how their data is going to look like and how their apps are going to interact with their data. So we can actually solve some questions for you. We can, the first questions you need to answer, for example, when you're starting to manage your data: is my database going to be relational or no relation? I'm going to use MySQL, NewSQL, whatever SQL, or Postgres, or like whatever. How am I going to handle the caching history story? So which kind of queries am I going to store? Because if I'm at some point, I need to like cache those kind of queries to make it faster and to be able to provide these fast access to my user across the globe. How am I going to deal with failover and replication of this data that's being cached? How am I going to handle migrations? How am I going to handle migrations? How am I going to handle whenever I'm updating this data? Or am I going to change my schema with my app going on? Hands up, like I cannot see your hands, but hands up if you ever had to deal with migrations and suddenly you're confused about getting the right time to handle all the downtime that's necessary. So we aim to get you like to no downtime migrations, because we're behind an API. How we're going to implement the search, like implementing Elasticsearch and queues and make sure the availability is there. And then you get security. So handling data security is also really important, because with all these things running wild and you're maintaining all this, you still need to be able to ensure privacy, especially on this GDPR era. We need to be able to do security. So the point is, we a lot of we at Xata, we were kind of tired to see every team handling all these discussions at some point, because every one of us, like if we've been to companies that grew their product to a certain degree, we saw this happening. We saw the moment that, okay, we need to handle this data, and we saw like teams being created just to handle this kind of stuff. And these decisions are decisions that need to be made early on, otherwise and they cannot be changed easily. So we decided, okay, so we're going to have this team that's dedicated and we're going to build this platform for it. And these questions and other questions that you have are going to be solved out of the box. So this is the service we're going to provide to people. We're going to manage that to you. And that's where we go to borrowing the terminology of serverless, where serverless is when you actually use servers that you don't need to maintain. We can say databaseless, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. Hashtag databaseless, I guess. But if you look again at all that thing that I was showing, where you have like the data layer, you have the caching layer, you have the queuing system, the search, maybe even analytics at some point, it's not really database, right? It's more of a data platform because you get the database, you get the search, and you get APIs for it. Yes, that's right. So you don't need you actually on Zeta you don't actually need to do like MySQL queries or Postgres queries, or like you don't do queries straight to the database. What we're offering is is something that we are behind an API, and that's why we can provide you with this kind of service. Because we're behind an API, you don't even need to worry if you are doing like NoSQL or MySQL. We're of giving you all the guarantees that you would with one, and we can aim to give you all the performance that you have with the other. So you can actually get by hitting an API, and that's like the most familiar structure that every Jamstack developer has. You can actually do databases. You can handle database. You can create schemas without needing to write queries. So going back at it, you have all those microservices. You have your app. You have the Jamstack JavaScript there on the client side, handling the states and sending requests to microservices, and you have this like little um, special microservice, which is just another API. It's a REST API. You have an SDK. You have a library that you're going to connect to it. And because we are owning your schema and because we are behind an API, we can afford to give you the endpoints, and we can afford to give you like type generation and type safety between your front end and your back end. So we actually have a TypeScript first SDK that we are going to see in a minute. So yeah, let me know on the comments here if you folks like TypeScript, because I'm about to show you some stuff. Because after all, and I'm really sorry for the bad pun, that's what I do. Yeah, so it's a hackathon, not a talkathon. So I'm going to stop talking now, and we are going to start hacking. So now I'm going to switch my screen to my terminal. And at any moment in the comments, let me know if the font's too small, if it's hard to see, whatever. I'm looking at the comments right now, so interrupt me anytime if you have questions. If I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow, let me know. The point here is that you folks um, are um, are acquainted to what is the developer experience in Xata, and my goal is to empower you to create nice stuff and ship great content. So first of all, we have this. We have our official Next.js starter. So if you folks are not familiar, Next.js is this React-based framework that's very widely used in the JavaScript, in the Jamstack ecosystem. So it does some server-side rendering, a bunch of stuff, and it has in this CLI that's called Create Next App. We can pass some examples. So we already have thanks a lot, Nakam. We already have this with Zeta template or official example. So you can just type npx, or if you do yarn create or pnpm dlx, and you can call the create next app, pass this flag, which is like dash e or double dash examples. Sorry, let me just bump the font. Is that better, Aaron? So we're about to pop out of the terminal. I'm just showing you that we have this with Xata example. I already ran it because I don't want you to watch me do it perform npm install for me. And after we do that, we can jump into VS Code. So whenever you get stuck, what? No, that's the wrong VS Code window. So let me go again and blogs. So I just started these blogs, and whenever we start with it, we get a bunch of stuff with this template. So now I'm on my VS Code. Can everybody see it good? Is it nice to see? I can bump up the fonts a little bit more. And for VS Code, like what Next.js does is by default, it runs yarn install. And you get a few stuff out of here. So in this example, you also get this Next.js with data example. So you have like this mock database. And we have for you a few tasks. So this is start Xata is going to initialize your database with this schema, and it's going to push some stuff to your Xata workspace, and then you'll be good to go. But we're not going to be using this one at this demo. So we're going to be creating our own. And then what this template also gives you is some of the ways to interact with our client. So this is already using the code generation that we're about to see. And you get the Xata client, and you can see you have some stuff here, which I'm about to demo you a little bit further. So now let's go back to our wait. So let's go back to our web browser. So whenever you log into Xata, this is something you'll see. This is my workspace. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to provision a database. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to add a new database. I'm going to pick it purple. And I'm going to call it blogs because that's the name of the blog I'm just creating. So with that, I click and boom, I have a database. Now my database is empty. I have anything here. So I'm going to come to add a table, and I want to create a demo database. So this is like this demo schema. So I have a blog here. You can see over here that I have a post and the users, and each user can be an author. So this is actually pointing out some relationship that I have. So every author is actually a user. So if I come over here to my posts, I can see that I have the author name is Eddie Abbott. And if I come to my users, I have Eddie Abbott over here. So I can link to every post, like every author has one. And that's it. Now I have a database. So I can go back to VS Code over here. And what I need to do now is connect this project that I have to that database that I just created. So for this, what I'm going to do is come over here, and we have this VS Code extension. So the VS Code extension is an interface that we can manage our database straight from the VS Code app. Can I zoom in to the... Sorry, David, can I zoom in a little bit more? Like this? Let me know if VS Code is clear, because we're going to spend some time here. And now back over here. So I have, like, whenever I install it, I get this this thing on the my Xata icon, which we call a Xata fly, in my gutter. And whenever I click here, I can get all my databases. So these are actually my databases over here. So they are my workspaces. So on my VS Code, I have all my workspaces here. What I'm going to do is actually click Get Started. And these are going to prompt me to all my workspaces, and I'm going to link to my demos. And in my demos, I can pick the database that I want to link it to. Whenever I click blogs, you can see I can have my same tables over here. So I have my users table. As you can see, here's Eddie over here. And if I come here to see my post table, I have all the posts over here as well. Cool. And then what the VS Code extension did, it created the .m file, which I'm not going to show you in the streaming because this has my Xata access token. And it also creates the .zrc, which is essentially a JSON that has the URL to my database. So this is what my CLI and my SDK are going to use. Okay, Xata was not visible. Okay, I'll make sure I check again when we go back. But now we're going to spend some time here on the VS Code. So these .zrc are actually the configuration that our CLI is going to use to generate the stuff we need. So besides the database URL, we are going to have the output. No, I'm sorry. We're going to have the codegen configuration, and the codegen has this output where I'm going to say that I want to put that on my lib folder, and I'm going to prefix this to codegen. This is like my personal preference. A lot of people don't, but I like to make it explicit that this specific file that is going to show and that I'm going to version, I'm going to push that to GitHub. I want to make explicit that this file is generated on a command, because every time I change my schema, every time I create a new column, every time I update a new table, I'm going to run the codegen again, and this codegen and this file is going to be overwritten, so I cannot change anything in this file. So I save this, and now here we are. We see we don't have this lib folder yet, but I have here in my package JSON, I have this command that I named Xata. You can name whatever you want. You can name Xata codegen or whatever you want. So this command is going to call my CLI and is going to run the codegen. The CLI is something that's coming installed by default in this template. We don't exactly recommend that you do that. It's going to make your life easier if you interact with the CLI to have it globally installed in your system. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to use this one for this demo. So I'm going to open my terminal now, and I'm going to, because this project's using Yarn, I'm going to call Yarn Xata. And what's going to see, it's going to call this and it's going to say, okay, I generated this thing, my Xata client in this Xata codegen TS. And you see the folder just appeared over here. And I come here and you see that I have my tables over here. I have all the types. So this is my database schema. Everything that is created, all the types, the date time. I have the relation described over here. And it's also creating the types. So now you can, for example, just come over here to your to whatever serverless function you have. And this is actually not true anymore. I cannot do this. But then if I start connecting to my database, TypeScript needs some help over here. So this is going to actually give me the autocomplete. My types are not updating, but this is going to give you the autocomplete that you need for this. And I'm going to show you now how to create these queries and connect to your database from here. So this is it. You linked your database, you have all the connections you need, you have codegen working, and you have a Next.js app ready to go. So now let's see what Xata can do for you. So I'm heading over back to Xata, and I'm going to open this thing over here. So this is my workspace. And here we can do a bunch of stuff. You can actually create queries without writing code. So let me show you, for example, if I want to get my posts. And you see here, these posts, you don't need to go reading those posts, but let me make it a little bit bigger. So these posts, they are ordered by ID. What I want actually is to sort them by the newest. I want the newest first and then the latest, the oldest. So first the latest post that I wrote and then the oldest. So you see these already updated. And now what I want to do is get this code snippet, which is going to suggest me, okay, so you can set up your data, but we already did that. And I can come here and I want all my posts paginated and I want them sorted like this. So with this, I can actually use the SDK, which is the one we use, or you can use a JavaScript, or you can use shell. So everything is ready for us to do. So for example, if I come for JavaScript, I can say, okay, I just want a regular fetch. And this is going to generate this ephemeral access token. So I can copy it here. If I open my browser, I can run this on any JavaScript environment. I can post it here. And oh, yeah. And then my promise, and then the promise is going to show up over here. And I can get the results from this. Oops, I need to include the temporary keys. That's the problem. So yeah. So here you go. So now I have all the records. So I have all my posts here, and I didn't write a single line of code. I have this. I have this query working just as I created over there. But yeah, so if you also want to play around on the playground, for example, you can come to this SDK Playground where we can actually run queries. So this is essentially the same thing that you get on your code after the code gen, but this is the playground is ready for you. So we can go Xata and then DB, and I can say, okay, I'm going to query all my posts, and I want to get, I don't know, the first post. And that's it. So the first post in my database, I can run the query over here, and I can see, oh, I didn't console log. So now I run this and I get my first post. I can also do the good old sorting. So I can come sort, and I can say sort by so sort by created at, and I want it to be descendant. So now I get my newest post. And this is just playing with that, with this one. And so I mentioned before, you also get search. We get Elasticsearch built in. So for example, let's go back to our posts and let's get from the text over here. I want to get like a random word. So this one, and I'm going to come to my search and I want to search a term. So you can see here that I have all the highlighted terms of my search. So the same word that I just queried, and I have this relevance. So what does this mean? This means that we can each result is actually ranked. So we can come here and add a booster, for example. So I want to add a date booster. I want my freshest post to actually show higher. So as you can see, as I change this, I get the post ranking higher because this one is latest. We can also change the fuzziness search. So this is, for example, if I have a typo, all my results disappear. But if I come here and I upgrade my fuzziness, it starts tolerating typos in my search terms. And all this is also ready to be queried. So I can come here and say, okay, I want to use this straight in the search of my blog. So I can just come here and I have my query written out for me. It also works straight up in the playground, where I can come over and let's delete this. And now what I want to do is some search results, and I want to do a Xata search. And inside this search, what I'm going to do is pass the term, and this is the term. And oh wait, do it. No. Let me go back because this is different. Search. Oh, I forgot the keyword. Yeah. See, it's very good to have that kind of code snippet, because if you're nervous doing some live coding, you can always get a little help. And now we're going to log the search results. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to describe that I want to search this in which tables. So the first table that I'm going to do is posts. And I'm going to define here fuzziness of my search. So I want my fuzziness to be 1. And I want also, for example, to add some boosters. So I want a date booster, and this date booster is going to be, no, wait, I want a numeric booster this time. And I want it to be, so you can set up the boosters over here as well. So you have the numeric boosters, you have the date boosters, and you have all of these other ones over here. So you have the exact value booster in the column booster. So for example, the date one is a mouthful, and we can also get you can actually combine those boosters. So if I come over here, I can set the date one for the post credit and the post views as well. And then you can define how relevant those is. So the post with the most views actually get first. And then I'm just going to copy this and we can come over back here and you can get both of the boosters over. So we're saying in which column we're applying the numeric booster. So we're applying to the views column and we're applying to the a factor of 2. And then you can play around with it and see the results. Once you're done, you can just copy over this over here, go back to your code, and paste whenever you want. So this is, and this is how you get the search working. So yes, so this is a little bit of the demo that I had for you folks. And back to my presentation now. I want to leave you folks with a few links that I'm going to also paste it over there. So if you get, I'm going to paste the link of this presentation over, and all of these links are clickable inside the slides, but I'm also going to paste the slides over there. And you get like our docs, you get our Discord. You have also the examples repository, which is definitely open source and open to get contributions. So besides this Next.js example, we have another one with authentication. We have other ones. We have other ones with Remix, for example, deploying to Netlify as well. And we have a few samples coming up. Every kind of contribution is always welcome, of course. And we also have this very nice YouTube video that is a walkthrough. It's essentially a similar demo to the one I just gave you right now, where you can just go on and watch and go back, go forward. This one is presented by one of my colleagues called Tejas Kumar. So yeah, different way, similar stuff, same product. And thank you very much for having me. You can find us at Xata on Twitter, or you can find the rest of my team as well. So I go by Atila Facina, Tejas Kumar _ and Fabian0102. You can find us, tweet at us, poke us on Discord. Let us know if you run into anything. I'm going to now open up for questions, and I'll try to answer all of them. So the first one by Aaron: can Xata work like common content management systems like Strapi and Contentful, where communication can be done via REST APIs call? Yes. So the point is, I actually have a little article on is Meshing magazine. So I have this little series. Oops, that's not the right link. It's not authors, it's author. So I wrote a few posts for them, and I'm actually writing this series where we talk a little bit about what databases are and how to handle them for front-end development, and I compare them at this point with content management systems. Essentially, content management systems are special kind of database that are focused on handling content. That being said, if you want to create your own, you're going to need a database, and you can create your own content CMS using Xata. You just need to handle all the data types and handle the strings parsing and validation and whatever else you would expect from a CMS. But essentially, yes, you can do that. And without the SDK or any local setup, you would need some kind of local setup, I guess, to communicate with the database. But the SDK is not mandatory. The SDK is supposed to help you with the ergonomics. The SDK is going to help you have the type safety between your API calls and your client side. It's going to help you connect to the database and manage the branches, because you can also branch your schema. So the SDK is supposed to help you with the ergonomics, but if you want to ditch the SDK completely, you can actually come over here. If you remember when I showed you the code snippets, you actually have an option to use without the SDK. So you have like a regular fetch call. So these, like if you use this endpoint, it will essentially work. What the SDK is going to do is help you pass the right parameters and define what is the right endpoint to call based on the action you want to perform in your data. How does Xata authentication works? We don't have authentication as a service per se. What we do have is some stories on integrating with. We have some stories for integrating with Next.auth. There's also one that we're cooking about integrating with Clerk. And we also have a Next.auth adapter coming up soon. It's ready to be merged. We're just doing the final reviews on the Next.auth app. So we also have over here in our example apps, you see we have one with basic authentication. But yeah, it's not a service that we offer out of the box for people. So you can accomplish that. Like this is actually a to-do app. So you can just see how it goes, and you can change from basic auth to a JWT based. We have a demo that we're about to ship with that. Yes, you can definitely have the links of my blog posts. Let me go back here. I cannot post on the comments for some reason, but I'm sure William can help me out with that. So I'm going to paste it over to him. These are all my posts, and they are going to be shared here. I can also share them on Discord. No, Xata is not read-only from the application, but I strongly recommend you, and I cannot stress that enough, that your connection to write data and actually even fetch data needs to be on the backend, so you don't expose your tokens. So from the client side, it's ideal that you have some kind of proxy. If you see what we do here on this example app, we actually encourage you to use the get server side props or the get static props from Next.js when you're connecting to Xata, and use the API routes, because what we want is that your app has the access token, but your client doesn't. So any connection to the database needs to be done by the backend. That's default for pretty much every app. What we do, because Xata is essentially a database, even though it's behind an API, you still need to pass those tokens. So it's important that you do that from the backend. But yeah, if your application has a backend layer, you can do read, writes, updates, everything from there. Can one add image uploads to Cloudinary from Xata? Yes. So what we're going to do right now is that you don't have the image or the file data type. What you're going to do is basically upload whatever your image to Cloudinary, and you can store the image URL from Cloudinary in your Xata database. We're actually working together into creating some easier integration. So I think you met Kobe yesterday. So my team and Kobe's team are talking into making this integration a little bit easier and seamless. And my team is also working on the data image type as well. Oh, Kobe's there. Hi, Kobe. Yes. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have one. You
Awesome.
just talked about Xata and Cloudinary, and I'm curious, is it going to be possible to search for an image using Zeta's, search engine on, say, an image that's stored on Cloudinary? Because I really
Well,
love the search function.
so I think we already talked a little bit about creating integration. So you asking me that is a good indicator of the kind of stuff we need to build. I think both of us in Zeta and Cloudinary want to give a best developer experience we can. So if that's something that becomes a priority, if a lot of people using Cloudinary want to use Zeta and people using Zeta want to integrate with Cloudinary, we are going to work on the most ergonomic way of doing that. So yes, we can have that. We just need to be sure to allow someone
That's
to search for the tags on a media object. That's definitely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question I have is, you've shared, a lot of resources, but what is the one resource you would recommend for anyone that's new to Zeta to, try it out? Where should they go to first?
So the first one that I would recommend is we are really working hard on having our docs in the best looking way possible, and we are working very hard into making them clear and objective and straight to the point. We have a quick start tutorial there already that's creating a to-do app with basic auth, and there's even a video there already. There's this recent video from the walkthrough that I shared before that it's very fresh out of the oven. They just shared that with me earlier today. So I totally recommend you to start with that. Like, he's demoing everything I just did here in about 10 minutes. So I totally recommend you starting with those. And again, like, we have a dedicated channel for people building stuff on our Discord. So even if you're not sure about what to build, you can start from there and ask us, like, look, I want to leverage whatever Zeta has to offer. I want to build with this or that stack. We can connect you with someone, or we can help you ourselves. Even if you're out of ideas, we are all focused on creating content as well. Like, I write a lot for Smashing Magazine and on my personal stuff. My team is working hard on creating nice content for people to actually learn how to use Zara. So we know the struggle of finding the right topic and the right example for what you want to teach. So you can just poke us at any time. So it really depends on what's the point you're waiting for. Like, we're here to help, Start from the docs if you already know what to build. If you want some like big ideas, you can go through the walkthrough to see, like, to have a big scope of what we can offer. And if you're completely lost about what you can do with a database, and what Xata has to offer, just jump in our Discord and ask. So Chris has another question. Looking at the documentation, database can be deployed on Netlify, which means one can use the Cloudinary plugin on Netlify. So you cannot actually, like, we don't have a way for you to deploy the database. So because our database is behind an API, there's no like on-prem way. So you're not deploying the database. What we do is essentially like you deploy a serverless function on Netlify, and you can, from that serverless function, connect to the database. But the database, like, we still own, like, we need to own that, because we need to give you we need to give you support for the scalability. We need to scale vertically or horizontally. We need to be able to give you the search. If you would deploy everything, then we would not be abstracting the complexity for you. So you would still need to maintain all that, and that's kind of defeats our goal, which is to make databases easier for people to build stuff, and I dare say even fun. I have fun. Maximum size allocating for a media upload in general. So we don't have media upload yet. The general database size is very high, especially at the moment where we're still in closed beta. So you're all going to get like early access, which I'm about to like send some invites right after this talk, as soon as William tells me that I have the green light to do that. So you need to poke him if you want earlier. Um, but yeah, so I think if you're going to store the images on Cloudinary, that's a question for Kobe. Yeah, so you can, what Kobe's saying, you can store the database, the Cloudinary URL, and that's like very low for us. So you can, I don't know, you can, like, you cannot go too much. Yes, so we are going to have a free plan, definitely. And I don't know yet exactly. I cannot promise you what are going to be the limits. What I can promise you is that every small to even to mid-sized apps are going to comfortably fit our free plan, so you don't need to worry. You're only going to be, definitely, if you are going to hit the ceiling of our free plan, is definitely because you already have an enterprise grade app and you're already making money. So yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Atila. This has been great. I really love the search function. Search is definitely one of the more difficult um, features to build into any application, and it's good to see that ship out of the box with Xata.
Yeah, and
Um,
there's more coming. So I focus on the things that were more practical, but like, you have other stuff like branching. You can basically branch your schema just like GitHub branches, and eventually you're going to be able to like do these migrations instantly. So there's a lot of stuff if you're like a database expert, I would say, or if you're interested in that, to poke around, pop the hood, ask us questions. There's a lot to talk about, and we're always happy to do so. So yeah.
yeah. Thank you very much for that. And to the audience, Attila is going to be on Discord, so you can always like ask any questions you have. If you're finding it difficult to use, any portions of Xata, he's available to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, after this, Attila would invite everyone to try out Xata. As for the hackathon, we will be building with Xata and Cloudinary. So we would all need access. So Attila, yeah, you have the go ahead to invite everyone to.
Yeah, but only click the link after the next presentation, because I don't want William to be mad at me. So I'm going to send the invites now, but you can only see after the presentations.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, Attila. At least we get
Yeah, thank
access.
you.
Yeah. Um. And I hope to see you on Discord, and we keep hanging out there.
I'll be there. See you later. Bye
All
bye,
right.
guys.
Have a nice day.